Hello, and thank you for listening to another episode of the Friday Big So What, in which I'll share with you something that struck me and share my thoughts on why it matters. Okay, so I had planned on doing a piece on leadership and focusing in on Maxwell's 16th law, the law of sacrifice, because I thought it dovetailed nicely with the last article on agility. But as I got doing some research and was rereading a Malcolm Gladwell article from the book Outliers, how he talks about 10,000 hours of practice, etc., and then tying that to sacrifice, I was all of a sudden hit by this idea of a practice. So I'm going to dive into the ideas of a practice here and talk about the leadership piece in a future podcast. So, if you're like me, whether it was your music teacher, your football coach, your tennis coach, golf instructor, math teacher, etc., they were always telling you to practice, practice, practice so that you could get better and better. Great idea. But we're not going to talk about that either in this podcast. Rather, I'm going to talk about the concept of a practice and what it means to have a practice. So, what do I mean by what is a practice? Well, consider this: doctors and lawyers have a practice. You can practice religion, practice mindfulness, or whatever. Some people say they quote unquote, yeah, hone their craft. Yeah, they have a practice. Um, so the point here is the idea of a practice. In fact, even scientists have a practice. They're always getting better. The idea here is that you're never really done. And I love this concept when you talk about what you do, especially in the area of consulting. It comes, however, with a crucial mindset and a few other things. Simon Sinek talks about this concept in his book, The Infinite Mindset, and refers to the concept of an infinite game in which the rules are vague, players come and go, and there is no defined or definite timeline. This is in contrast to a definite game, where the rules are defined, the players are set, and the objectives and time are fixed. Take, for example, Monopoly, where the idea is to get as much money as you possibly can. There is a specific set of players, and hopefully the game ends at some point in time. Um, but what does this mean to us? What are these characteristics of practices? Well, I did some research, read some articles, and there are some characteristics that really the top practices have in mind. The first, again, is this idea of an infinite mindset, that there is no end. There is always ongoing. You're always practicing, you're always getting better, that your business will continue on and on. And in fact, the idea of selling a practice off to others and continuing that business is one that's been around for quite a while. The second is that you're focused on the client and serving their needs, not on pushing a product. It is generally that there is a single area of focus. There's a place that they are focused on. Uh, the example of this is I don't really go to my podiatrist for open heart surgery. Generally speaking, it's staffed by experts who provide advice and insights in return for reasonable fees and are always seeking to get better and better. They have this learning mindset that they're always trying to bring more value to their clients. And finally, repeat business. Repeat business and relationships are the key and core. In fact, for many of these kinds of business, repeat business is probably between 60 and 80% of their income for a given year. Now, what's the opposite of this? The opposite of this, of course, is stagnation, arrogance, ignorance, and ultimately failure. Okay, but why do I care and what do I get? What do I gain from having a practice? Well, in having a true practice, you accrue some key benefits. The first one of those is personal satisfaction. When you do something really, really well and are respected, you feel good about it. Think about that time that you scored that goal or did something and somebody said, that was awesome. Think about how you felt. And now imagine that you can do that almost every day. You get relief. You know what you do and you know what you don't do. You get to choose what you work on and what you don't work on. You don't have to say yes to everything. That's a huge relief. Eventually, you get to choose your own clients. Maybe not at first, but over time, as you become better and better, you can choose with whom you work and with whom you do not. I can assure you that the best bands in the world and the greatest golfers get to choose the venues they want to play in and which ones they don't. Maybe not all the time, but generally speaking, that's the deal. And finally, time. Time, the great equalizer in the world. The one thing you have in common with the greatest businessmen, actors, poets, and leaders is we all get 24 hours in a day. What you do with them is your choice. When you have a practice, you get to choose what you do with your time. All right, so this sounds awesome, but so what? What do I do? How do I develop a practice? Well, there are 5 areas you will need to have, do, or decide in having a practice. Of course, the first one is to decide you want to have a practice, but assuming you've done that, these areas are number 1, focus. You can't be everything to everyone. Number 2, developing this learning mindset. Be open to new ideas, explore the possibilities. You have to be willing to practice, practice, practice. We're not just talking about the quantity of the practice, but rather the quality and the quantity together. This concept of deliberate practice. And we're going to talk about that in part 2. You want to have a set of written goals. Those goals help guide you and get you along the way and make sure that you know where you're going. And finally, you put your client at the center. So that's it for the area of practice, of a practice. We've talked about what makes a good practice, what a practice is, and the 5 areas. Next time, in the next part 2 of this, we're going to focus a little bit more in on these 5 areas of focus for a practice. We'll explore the idea of focus and what it brings, the learning mindset, and putting clients at the center. So, in the interim, I want to thank you for listening. And I want to quote a friend of mine who says, instead of have a great day, make it a great day. It's all about what you do to make it a great day. So go out there and make it a great day. Thank you.